Are you ready for some fairly interesting shenanigans? Today I wasn't really planning on making a video about this, but one of my friends came over with his 2017 Permobil M3, and he was having a really strange issue with the seating. We finally figured out what the problem was, but I just wanted to make this video and kind of show the process of how I go through and troubleshoot things, and it's basically how I learn. Now, as we all know, Permobil chairs are a little bit interesting. Their control systems are spoofing standard RNet components, and there's a lot of really interesting oddities you run across. We're gonna touch on almost all of that today. So anyways, here's an impromptu video, and we just kind of descend into madness. Near the end though, I do recap everything that happened and explain all the questions that you may have. So if you're kind of wondering what's going on, I jump in a few times and explain things, maybe put some text on the screen here and there. The ice maker always has to get in here. But at the end, there's a nice recap that sums everything up. So anyways, here you go. Hopefully you enjoy. So here we have, was it 2017?
Yes.
2017-ish Permobil M3 that thinks it's a standing chair now. And as you can tell by this angle, this did not come with anterior tilt. I mean, other than whatever the free baked in amount is. When you try to run the calibration, it starts trying to stand. So we're just gonna let it go. Let me get this turned on here. Okay, so we're gonna start the auto calibration. This doesn't have power legs. He's just holding those up to keep them from hitting the floor. So, there we go. It's never supposed to do this. Yeah, dude, it thinks it's a standing chair.
Wow.
What? The M3 is a standing chair now. What on earth is happening? I mean, it's doing the normal calibration stuff. I didn't even know this mechanism was capable of... Yeah, see, it's missing all the normal stabilizer bars that you would have on a standing chair. But it's just like, yeah, cool, let's stand up.
Yeah, you'd be on your head right now.
It shouldn't come too much past 90, but it also shouldn't do this. So, I wonder what position it's going to leave itself in. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, it should bottom out there any second. Okay, there it is. Oh, I guess I've got to take pictures while I'm... No, it's going to make the horrible loud screeching noises in a minute. I think it's done moving. You can probably let the foot plates on the floor. Yeah. I got to take a picture of this and send it to Dave.
Everybody's sitting in that.
So ever run a calibration on an M3 and have it do this?
You have your shoulder harnesses on and just be...
Maybe it's not going to do the beep.
Skydiving?
Yeah, welcome to skydiving mode. Yeah, ACS Master Air, I would think so. Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and turn this off.
You gotta get on the floor to reach.
I know, you gotta get on the floor to reach the joystick.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens when you turn it back on.
And hit a button.
Yeah, okay, that's expected, kind of normal. ICS Master Air.
Candy bag.
Yeah, it's got the candy cane blinkiness going on. So we'll power cycle again.
Worse than the other day. What we moved the fist.
So I think, yeah, as per usual, recline still works just fine. We never had a problem with that.
No.
But I would, because the other day when we pressed any of these, it would start trying to stand again, but it's already standing, so... Ooh.
Still trying.
It's still trying to go. Now it's blinking over current. Wait, is that? No. And then...
No.
This thing's not happy.
No.
Oh. That should be fine.
It's going the other way.
Alright, I'm gonna...
Manual mode.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in manual mode and then we can run it back. I have to look up the codes for that again.
There was
Okay, so I'm trying to remember which combination of things. Okay, so that's up. Down is up is down. And then we want to run the tilt up a little bit. I think it was down? No, up? Okay, there we go. Okay, so we got that off the lights. The footplate should be fine. And I think it was it up we were doing?
Yes.
Yeah, so we just do a dance between elevator up, which is lowering the back, and tilt down, which raises the front. And we can get it back into a normal position. Ish. This is so confusing. Which, by the way, the fix for this today is over here in this box. We have the old ICS module for this thing, which was working fine and was swapped for reasons. They just decided to swap it.
Laziness.
Yeah, efficiency. So we're just going to put the one we know that works back in that doesn't think it's a standing chair, because that's what's controlling all of this right now. This is going to take a while. So I was just explaining. I figured I should record this. So the ICS master module on these chairs is basically the same for all the chairs. They just run different firmware on it. Now, typically, you can't just switch modes between a standing chair and a non-standing chair. You have to reflash new firmware to it. This one somehow reflashed itself into becoming a standing chair.
One day it just...
Yeah, one day it just started doing this all. The buttons are all backwards and it tries to stand every time you do anything. And, oh, I guess we could run the lift up so I can get under there easier. So, I think, yeah, so forward on tilt is raising it. And then, was it down on lift? Yeah, so forward tilt, down on lift. We hold both of those. And the other thing's going up. So it's rewired and reprogrammed itself and changed all of its actuator channels into being a standing chair. This is how a 5 Series works. So, much confused. Normally this is not possible, but here we are. Okay, here's the one we just pulled out. And we do have our, aftermarket light wiring in here, whatever. But I noticed this extra header right here. So I was like, let's look at the old one. Oh, look, that header's not there. I feel like, I don't know if that was for lighting or what exactly, but clearly, oh yeah, I think that is for lighting, because those are the switching transistors or whatever those are there. Yeah, so clearly a newer one, but yeah, we'll put this one in here and I'll turn the camera back on when we power this thing up. So we have it tentatively just set in there. The plan is, obviously this chair is covered by people that work on wheelchairs and insurance and blah, 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 whatever. But the idea is we want to put this in here and make sure it works like a normal chair, and then it can be used in the meanwhile while we wait for however long it takes to get this fixed by whoever, whatever. Maybe someone goes over someone's head. I don't know. We're just going to plug this in and see if it behaves like a normal M3. You want to turn the breaker on back there? Yeah. It takes a little more force to turn it on than off. All right, cool. So, it should go through its little auto detecty thing and wonder what we did to it. Clearly it's doing that. I'm gonna let this kind of settle for a minute. I see I should reboot. Okay, it can't connect because the chair needs to reboot, so let's do that. I usually like to let that cycle a couple times before I turn it back on and off. Okay, so it is confused by your tilt actuator for some reason. Tilt is working. Backrest is working. Seat lift probably not going to work because it probably needs to be calibrated. When this was last unplugged, I'm sure it was in a different position. Oh. Yeah, so it goes up, but it'll probably not go down any further than this because, yeah, so that makes sense. Okay, it seems to be okay. I'm gonna put the lid back on that and get it kind of tucked out of the way, and then we're gonna run on an auto calibration and see if the seat lid fixes itself. I'm not quite sure why that would be red at the moment, but we don't know what position the chair was in when that was unhooked for whatever reason it was unhooked. You know, sometimes you go and get your chair repaired and then they just fire up the parts cannon and start throwing parts at things. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but it's something that happens sometimes.
I am.
Okay, so we're ready to run an auto calibration here. Like I said, this has manual leg rests. They've got them up. We got them up all the way. I don't think it should be a problem, assuming it behaves like a normal chair. But let's fire it up. See what we get. Okay. Oh! Wait. There we go. That's fine. Wait, is it? No. Ooh. What? Ah, thank you. I think we're still okay. It's a lot of tilt, but it's not too bad. I'm wondering if one of the actuator's firmware got toasted somehow. Well, we'll let it keep going. This isn't completely out of the ordinary yet. What it does next will be a factor. Permobil noises. Okay, that's good. That's really good. Alright, you should be able to let go of this now. Then at some point it'll do that screeching. The calibration, sometimes we'll leave it in an odd position like this. It doesn't actually need to fully run the seat lift to determine where it's at. Okay, so we are at a weird angle of tilt, but it started in an unknown position, so it's not completely out of spec for it to go a little further than normal. What it didn't do was go all the way to the end of travel, which it's never supposed to do if it's not a standing chair, or even if it is, really. Let's power cycle here. We're gonna get the candy canes on this. We'll probably have to reboot again. Master air, that's fine. All right, do we have an M3? The lights are green. Let's see. Look at that, we're tilting back at a normal speed. Will the seat lift go down? Okay, so it's still a bit confused as to what all the way down is. So I think what we're gonna do is put it in manual mode and run it down all the way and go from there. Okay, so we've used manual mode to get this into a more normal-ish position. And now we're going to run the auto calibration again. The problem is with these non-standing chairs, the seat lift, the way it calibrates, there's a set of parameters that it can never go past in a non-standing chair. And if it doesn't know the position that it's in, because we started it in a really weird one, it'll go until it's reasonably certain that it's past where it's supposed to and then quit and give up trying to calibrate the seat lift. And I feel like it's so bad for the actuators to keep botting them out, but like, this is a built-in function. That startled me. It was a lot sooner than I thought. You're just sitting there all calm and cool, no problem.
I'm over this chair.
That's saying something.
Leave it on the side of the road.
What do I always say? Wait 10 seconds or something. 1, 2, 5, 9.
Microsoft.
Yeah, do the Microsoft thing. Do we have chair? Ooh, that's a new one. Wait. Is that tilt air? Forget the tilt air. Stand by. At this point, I was pretty confused with that blinking light. LED 1 flashing between yellow and red is a really strange air code I'd never seen before. So I took a little video clip of it and texted that off to someone I know that is very familiar with these chairs and their systems, and decided to go ahead and put the original ICS module back in. Well, the one that was in there earlier today. I decided to put that one back in and run an auto calibration just to see if anything would be different now. Because sometimes simply the act of unplugging and plugging things back in and letting them auto detect again can fix some of the weird little glitches and problems. Okay, so we got it back to a normal position. Auto calibrate. Okay, this is different. Last time it just started going forward and standing. So far though, it does seem to be better-ish. First off, it would just immediately try and stand, so we'll see here. Hang on. Okay, backrest is coming up now. Yeah, this is all fine, I think. I think we're getting good. Or better or something. All right, eruption of beeps. Yeah, that's new. I don't know what's going on there. So update on the chair repair process. We now have burritos, and we've phoned people that are much smarter than us, and those people are phoning people that are now much smarter than them. So there's definitely a strange thing going on here, and it's not just you're operating this incorrectly, sir. Sir, why did you hook accessories to your chair, sir? You broke it. No. This is a legit problem. After swapping the other module back in, running an auto calibration, and now we're getting the same problem, that tells me there's something else going on the chair if it's persisting between the two modules. I'm sitting there staring at this thing, and at this point, my friend's helper, that's not his dad, by the way, that's his like paid assistant person or whatever, he pipes up and he's like, "Hey, you want some burritos?" So he hops on the van and goes and gets us food. And while I was waiting for him to return, I was like, okay, there's clearly something else on the chair going on here. We're getting a tilt there. So I got down on the floor again. I unhooked the tilt actuator, went into the ICS onboard programming, and disabled that function. So in theory, if there's something wrong with that particular actuator or its firmware or its positional awareness or whatever, it'll now be removed from the system and see if the error clears itself out. There's an idiosyncrasy with permobil chairs that have tilt and lift. Well, specifically lift, because you can't have lift without tilt. But anyways, there's a bit of an oddity with that where you can't just unhook that actuator and clear it out of the chair and expect it to work. It might. This is an older chair, and things are a little different than the newer ones. And further complicating the situation, the ICS module that was put in this chair recently is from the newer generation instead of the older one. Now, it had been working for a while, which is fine and all that. These problems randomly developed one day. But anyways, I decided to unhook all that and didn't get anywhere. With the actuator unhooked and that channel disabled, we were still getting the error. So I decided to finish my lunch, and I got a phone call from the people and gave us some steps to try and try to move forward here. They were about as confused as I was. This is a really weird situation that makes no sense. Okay, so update on all this. Remember how I say never to adjust your seating settings with a dongle in the RNet software because it's confusing? I won't go into it, but I've been given some steps to try, which are very similar to what I tried earlier, but we're going to do it with the other actuator in the back. The controversy is whether this vertical post on the front, which gives you tilt, if that's called tilt or lift. There's another actuator in here that is technically the lift actuator, but sometimes it's called tilt. Unless the chair doesn't have a seat lift, then that same actuator becomes tilt instead of lift. So the RNet side names it one way, the ICS side names it the other way. So anyways, I'm gonna get down here and unplug this. We're gonna disable it in the software and see if the chair functions, because this error code we're getting has to do with the position sensor. Oh, my hand is wobbling. Has to do with the position sensor inside the seat lift. This color blinking code, nobody anywhere on Earth understands what that is right now. So we'll just ignore that and we'll go from there. I'll be back.
The connector we need to access is right there. It is very well clipped in place though, so we gotta use a little screwdriver to remove that, unplug it, and then Bob may be your aunt and or uncle.
We did it while it was turned on, but you know, hey, what are you gonna do? It still drives. That's the confusing part with all this. Somehow this thing still moves. All right, onboard programming. We can just ignore whatever's going on there. So ICS, available functions, and then elevate type will be none. Okay, we still have recline and tilt. Oh, I think the seat lift is down all the way. We're just testing. If it works, we'll something. I don't know. Back out of here. This is going to get all cranky for a second, probably. Wait for it. Sometimes this will reboot on its own without rebooting the chair. Okay, not in this case. Well, that's unusual.
Okay.
Huh?
Wake me up when you come.
Okay, I'll wake you up one more time, yes. Let's... available positions. Wait. The elevator's unplugged. Why did it... Oh. Never mind. Remember how I was talking about tilt and recline and whatever? So even though that's the elevate, we're going to disable tilt. The fact that it reinstalled itself means that it's there. That's the thing with these. If you disable these in that menu and the actuator's still plugged in, it just comes back. So it was a bit unclear to all the various smart people on the phone I was talking to, which is why these chairs are so confusing. Wow, I can't even hold this still. Anyways, we're gonna set this to none. See, tilt, none. Tilt, whatever. I probably should have backed out of that menu first, but we'll pretend I did. What do we got now? I didn't let it fully update, so we're gonna have to put it back and then change it back. So, go back out of here. I got a little bit excited here. When you change the settings in that ICS function, available functions menu, if you don't back all the way out of that menu to the main drive screen, it won't write the values to the chair. I just rebooted directly from that screen. So what that did was disable it in half the system, but not the other. And when I turned it back on, it still was super cranky and even more messed up than it was before. So I had to turn it back on, go back in, restart properly, turn it back off again, restart properly. Anyways, I had to do a whole bunch of stuff, but that was my bad. I got in too much of a hurry. There's lots of little steps that are not always obvious with this, and you got to go slow, take your time. Hey, we have a chair. It's green. Which, by the way, apparently that does make a difference if you're making changes in there, which, by the way, don't make changes in there. But if you make changes in there, back all the way out of the menu and let it update first. Otherwise, circles of loop and stuff. But I think... So you have a chair without a seat lift, and it works, and it drives. Okay, so all is well with this chair. We don't have a seat lift anymore, but I was just saying that I realized I should probably record. For science, let's see if we can break it again. We're gonna turn this off, and then we're gonna plug this actuator back in, and it will automatically detect that it's here and re-turn on its settings and everything. And if all of our problems come back, we'll know there's a problem. And if everything works perfectly with no problems, we'll know it's a permobil. Can I do this one-handed? Oh, little thing. Wait for it. Whoa, that was a weak click. Is it plugged in? Yeah, let's inspect our connectors. Yeah, they seem to be attached. All right, so what am I expecting? We're gonna turn it on. We're gonna get some candy gains probably. Might have to reboot it. Then it'll either be fine or it won't. Yeah, what we don't want to see is LED 1 flashing in a weird way. Okay, so that's doing its thing. Ooh, we got the tilt error again. So I bet we're gonna get this weird light that nobody knows what it means.
I'll tell you what it means. It means tilt is bad.
Tilt is bad? I think this is like, I'm a permobil. But here, check it out. The weird thing is if you press this button, no, I'm not gonna press the button because it'll move and we don't want it to move. But it'll move for a second and then realize, oh crap, I'm moving, and the whole thing will start flashing. So the one part of your chair that's not covered by insurance is broken. Excellent. Okay, so I don't remember the last clip that we recorded, but we've disconnected it again. So we're gonna go back in here and turn this back into a wheelchair again. And I think we determined it was tilt, even though it's lift. None. All the way back out, let it do its thing. Wow, we didn't even have to reboot the chair this time. I'm going to, though. All right, so I'm gonna turn off the camera and not talk about insurance fraud. See ya. All right, so these functions work now. We have tilt and recline. The surgery was a success, but we're missing functionality now. No more lift, but it drives around and we have green lights. What more could you ask for?
And send him on his way.
Send him on his way, yeah. What's that line from that John Candy movie? Get in your mouse and get out of here. I'm sick of this thing.
Get in your mouse and get out of here.
Well, that was one of the most rousing games of Stump the Chumps that I've played in a while. And like I said, I called some people that work at certain places, and they had to call other people that were above them. Some things were figured out, some were not. Let's recap all of this. So what actually happened here? This is one of those diagnostic or troubleshooting scenarios where you can't just look at the error codes, well, assuming any error codes actually exist, but you can't just look at the codes and say, okay, here's your problem, replace that part. Any good auto mechanic will tell you that simply plugging in a code scanner and getting the error codes won't tell you the whole story. What it does is it gives you a starting point of where to look. But after going through the entire process, figuring out what the issue was, and isolating it from the control system on that chair, which allowed the rest of it to operate properly, then we can kind of look back over what we'd seen and figure out what happened. I was kind of explaining how that system worked to John and how in those actuators, they have a set of gears. There's probably 5 to 7 gears inside the little box on the end of the actuator. And that's where the control system gets its positional awareness from. There's a set of gears in there that readjust how fast everything is spinning so that a little magnet can go past the Hall effect sensor, and it gives it a number of counts. And this gives it a fairly high resolution as to knowing exactly where that actuator is in space. As soon as I mentioned all those gears though, John was like, I heard a crunching noise just before all of this started. And I was like, well, there you go. That's the problem. The way this system works is it needs to keep track of the position. If it loses that awareness of the individual position pulses anywhere along the way, a lot of strange things can start happening. Now, it's robust enough to miss a few pulses here and there, kind of recover and still be okay. And a lot of times that'll happen over time. You may miss a few pulses, something may be weird, and eventually the calibration will drift a little bit. If you've ever slept in your chair overnight with it powered off, and then notice the next day sometimes the seating doesn't quite move correctly, or eventually after a time you get some errors, that's what's going on. Things are drifting, it's missing pulses, stuff is moving without the control system knowing what was going on. Well, in this case, some of those gears got messed up. They might have still been working, getting intermittent pulses sent out, but at some point, the chair's control system is gonna say, hey, this data is erroneous, and it's gonna throw an error and say, I don't know what's going on. Now, it may be a transit temporary error, power cycle the chair, comes back on, it thinks everything's fine. At some point, when the data gets messed up enough, or it's not receiving any info, or the info it's receiving it knows is incorrect, it'll just nuke the calibration in that controller and completely reset it. And that's what happened. Now, as far as the chair trying to stand, what was going on there was kind of a side product of all this. It wasn't really broken at all. You just have to understand how the system works. And I eventually came to this conclusion on my own, and then it was confirmed by the person I was talking to, the higher ups on the phone. But when you run the auto calibration, they don't fully run the tilt and lift actuators, because if you do that, this can happen. The chair will stand up a lot further than it's supposed to. So in that case, when it happens, you have to put the chair into emergency or manual mode, which gives you full control over the individual actuators with your buttons here. But you have to be really careful because there's no end stops or detection. You hit the button, the actuator moves. You gotta get the chair back into a more neutral position, then try and run your calibration again. Now, I did that a few times, and as we progressed, and as we were switching modules back and forth, the problem kept getting worse and worse. Eventually we got that weird blinking light, which made no sense, but switching between modules and having that persist told me, okay, this module's not the problem. Something else is going on here. As we were screwing with everything, those damaged gears were getting worse and worse. I'm extrapolating what happened here. I mean, it makes sense. Nothing else could have caused this. but those gears started getting worse and worse, and eventually wasn't getting any data at all. So the chair boots up, it sees the positional awareness, it can see the Hall effect sensor, that light's blinking. The second you try and move it, the controller knows there's amperage going out and that amperage is being used, but it's not seeing correct data based on what it thinks should be happening when that amperage is being sent out. So it just goes into air mode. So that was it. Basically just needs a new lift actuator for that thing, which happens to be the most difficult to replace actuator on the chair. And I don't know of any DMEs anywhere that will even attempt that repair. Like I've said in the past, that's one of those repairs that Permobil doesn't even like doing. if your chair is fairly new and something happens to the seat lift, in my experience, they like to replace the entire chair instead of that one actuator. So anyways, we figured it out at least. I was able to disable that in the system, unplug it. His chair is functional. He can get along without the seat lift on that. We're gonna try and figure out what to do moving forward, if he's gonna get a new chair or try to get this one fixed or whatever. But for now, he's got tilt and recline, and that's all he needs. So we'll just call that good. That was a very interesting troubleshooting process. And this is the stuff I love. This is how I learn things. There's a lot of stuff now that I actually need to write down in my notebook, but there's a lot of things I know now that will be able to come in handy in the future when I encounter certain problems. Remember that weird naming convention with tilt versus lift. That's gonna be an issue forever going forward, no matter how old the chair is that you're working on, you know, permobil specifically. But I love this. I love trying to figure out problems. I love calling in people, like phone a friend, you know, and try to figure this out. So anyways, that was a lot of fun for me. Wasn't explicitly going to be a video, but I just decided to film it. So hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in a couple days on the live stream. Thanks for watching.